Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a classic, profound little story that deals with something we literally all possess, but man, we always seem to be running out of it, right? I'm talking about time. We're going to look at a narrative that completely breaks down its true worth. Now, it's an ancient concept, for sure, but the lessons here, they are incredibly relevant to how we structure our chaotic, fast-paced, modern lives right now. We constantly feel rushed, overwhelmed, anxious about how our days just kind of slip away. Well, this story cuts right through all that noise to reveal a fundamental truth we honestly just forget.
So, think about this. Can you actually put a price tag on a single second? It's a concept that sounds almost ridiculous when you first hear it. I mean, we price our homes, our cars, we even price our labor by the hour. We insure our physical stuff for thousands of dollars. But a single fleeting second? How do you even begin to value something you can't touch, can't pause, and definitely can't put in a bank? Keep this question in the back of your mind because it is the exact riddle at the center of the story we're about to explore.
All right, let's dive into the first part of our story, the father's challenge, and a very familiar problem of laziness.
Our source narrative kicks off in a small, quiet village, and it introduces us to a father who had finally actually reached his absolute breaking point because his son's baseline status was simply lazy and careless. According to the story, this young guy never worked. He had zero ambition, no drive whatsoever. Instead, he just wandered aimlessly around the village all day long, letting hours turn into days and days turn into weeks with literally nothing to show for it. Now, for a dad trying to raise a capable, independent adult, watching his kid just waste away his youth was agonizing. He knew he had to do something drastic, not just yell at him or give him a lecture, but actually orchestrate a real-world experience to teach a lesson that would stick. So the father comes up with this rather brilliant psychological plan. He gently calls his son over and issues a deceptively simple three-step challenge. First, fetch a specific watch kept safely inside their cupboard. Second, take that watch down to the loud, bustling local market. And third, just ask everyone he meets how much they think the object is worth. That's it. No strings attached, no trick questions. The boy nods, probably just relieved it isn't a chore involving actual hard labor, grabs the watch, and heads off to complete this super straightforward errand. So, off he goes. This brings us to the price of a watch, valuing the material. The boy gets to the busy market and starts gathering his data. He presents this physical object to different merchants and passing villagers, asking for their appraisals. But the answers he gets, they are all over the place. He speaks to one man who confidently says the watch is worth 500 rupees. Then another man squints, looks at the exact same watch, and declares it's worth 1,000 rupees. Somebody else chimes in from across the stall offering 800. While a few people threw out similar numbers, the appraisals were wildly inconsistent. At the end of the day, it was just a piece of metal and glass, and everybody saw a totally different monetary value when they looked at it. The key takeaway from this first trip? No one agreed completely. The monetary value of this material object was totally subjective. It completely depended on who was looking at it and what they were willing to pay in that exact moment. So the boy goes back home and reports this confusing variance to his dad. Some said 500, some 800, some 1,000. He completely expects his father to be frustrated by the lack of a clear answer. But the dad doesn't look disappointed at all. Actually, he just smiles this knowing smile. He tells his son to put the watch back in the cupboard. The father had perfectly set the stage for the real lesson. Which brings us to the twist, the price of time, the second trip to the market. The very next day, the father calls his son back. He asks him to bring out the exact same watch, but this time around, he introduces a massive, paradigm-shifting twist to the instructions. The father looks deeply into his son's eyes and says, "Now, go to the market again. This time, don't ask the price of the watch. Ask people the price of the time inside this watch." Now, the source notes how incredibly confused the boy was here. He had no idea what his dad really meant by this strange phrasing, time inside a watch. How even price that? But being obedient, he took the heavy timepiece and headed back into the dusty market to ask this exact perplexing question. Well, the reaction he gets is entirely different from the day before. The marketgoers completely rejected this abstract concept. When the boy walked up and asked for the price of the time inside the watch, people looked at him strangely, like he'd totally lost his mind. Some actually laughed right in his face. Others, who were busy with their own trades and just frustrated by the interruption, rudely told him to go away, explicitly calling it a foolish question. The boy was left feeling incredibly sad, small, and deeply embarrassed. He's pacing through the crowded alleys, growing more and more defeated, finding absolutely no one who could value time. And right when he's about to quit, we hit our turning point. The watchmaker's secret, meeting the mentor. Right when the boy is at his absolute lowest point, deeply embarrassed and ready to just go home, he stops at a small, quiet shop tucked away from the main chaos of the market. He decides to ask his strange question one last time. Now, this shop belongs to an old man meticulously repairing intricate watches. When the boy shyly asks the old shopkeeper the price of the time inside the watch, the man doesn't laugh. He gently pauses his work. He looks up with a kind, deeply understanding smile. He knows exactly what the boy is really asking, and more importantly, he knows exactly what the father is trying to teach, and he shares this profound wisdom. Son, you cannot put a price on time. You can give millions of rupees, but you cannot buy back even 1 second of your life. That is why you must use your time wisely. The old watchmaker takes this abstract idea and breaks time down into two contrasting, universal truths, which brilliantly illustrates the whole philosophical core of our explainer today. On the left side of the equation, we have the bad thing about time. It passes. No matter who you are or what you do, it is constantly, relentlessly slipping away from us. But on the right side, we have the incredibly empowering, beautiful good thing. You get to choose exactly how to spend it. The power is entirely in your hands. You are the architect of those passing seconds, deciding whether they build a future or just fade away into the past. And that leads us to the priceless 24 hours, the great equalizer. The old man leans in and explains how this fundamental truth applies to every single human being on Earth, 24. This simple number is the grand, undeniable equalizer of the human experience. As the watchmaker explains, everyone in this world, from the most powerful billionaires to the poorest wanderers, has exactly 24 hours in a day. You can't negotiate with the universe for 25. You won't be arbitrarily shortchanged and given 23. It is a strict, completely unchangeable daily allowance given to all of us. Every single morning, completely regardless of our status, our background, or our bank account. So the crucial, defining point of success or failure is simply this: the difference is how they use those hours. What you actually do with that allowance dictates the trajectory of your entire life. As the old man spoke these quiet words, the source tells us the boy's eyes filled with sudden, overwhelming understanding. It clicked. The brilliant lesson his father had orchestrated had finally worked. He wasn't just holding a watch anymore. It was like he was holding a mirror to his own life. Something fundamentally shifted inside him at that exact moment. The boy deeply thanked the old man, turned around, and literally ran all the way home to tell his father everything he had learned. His dad smiled with absolute quiet pride. And from that momentous day forward, the boy's life entirely transformed. He started working hard, actually pouring his energy into meaningful tasks. He began using his time incredibly wisely, calculating the worth of his actions, and he completely stopped wasting his precious days just wandering aimlessly around the village. He had finally truly grasped the immense value of every single moment he was given. As we wrap up this narrative, let's just take a second to distill the old man's wisdom into a few final, powerful rules about time that we can all carry with us. Consider this stark comparison. Time is something you absolutely cannot keep. You can't stockpile it in a vault, you can't save it in a jar, and you sure can't put it on layaway for a rainy day. But you can spend it. In fact, you literally have no choice but to spend it. Every single second, your life is purchasing something, whether you're intentionally investing it in your growth or accidentally wasting it on distractions. Furthermore, time presents this fascinating paradox. It is completely free for everyone, yet it is utterly priceless. You cannot buy it. All the vast wealth, gold, and resources in the entire world cannot purchase a single extra minute when your clock runs out. But you can use it. You can leverage it to build incredible things, form deep relationships, and leave a lasting legacy. And remember, the absolute hardest truth of all: once it's gone, you can never, ever get it back. Which brings us to the end of our explainer today, and to a deeply personal question you really should be asking yourself right now. You, just like the young boy in the village, and just like the wealthiest, most influential people on the planet, have been given a fresh, brand new deposit of time today. So I leave you with this final thought. How will you use your 24 hours today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, spend your time wisely.